Today and across the fence, a new state law to protect the environment is causing farmers to make changes about how they do business and tough choices about staying in business. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Keith Silva in for Judy Simpson. 2017 will be remembered as the year when everything changed for Vermont farmers. The required agricultural practices, also known as RAPs, went into effect this year. The law regulates farming practices in order to improve water quality and curb erosion. Even farmers agree that changes to the laws are needed. But for those agricultural businesses affected by these changes, the question is, at what cost? University of Vermont Extension is providing support to farmers and helping them navigate this brave new world in order to understand their rights and responsibilities. Joining me is Mark Cannella. He's the director of UVM Extension's Farm Business Programs. Mark, thanks for being on Across the Fence.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a quick overview of the programs and the things that you cover in there.
Sure. Our agricultural business programs cover the state with both farm and now forest viability business programs. So we really work with managers to help them make good decisions. We've been known for the past several years for our farm viability project, where we do a lot of one-on-one business planning assistance and business coaching. We're now doing that with forest business owners and small mills. We also try to stay aware of current topics, and we do applied research projects or special projects that allow us to put out publications or workshops to address timely issues that'll help managers make good decisions.
So you're working one-on-one with the agricultural business, forest business owner, and doing, looking at the books, essentially.
Yeah, we sit right down at the kitchen table, sometimes on the 5-gallon bucket in the barn. We look at financial statements, we talk about marketing plans, and we talk a lot about household income and how the business performance affects the families and the people and the employees behind these agricultural businesses.
No, these RAPs didn't just appear out of nowhere. You knew they were coming. Your business knew what was going to happen. What did you do to prepare farmers?
Yeah, well, I work with a group of planners, so we think ahead. And when the state passed the initial law, before the regulations were passed, the initial water quality law, we knew that there would be legal implications, and we knew that there would be far-reaching implications to farm business practices. So we decided to get our team positioned to provide both one-on-one support to farmers in our wheelhouse of financial planning and strategic planning, and then also to be aware of what was going on with the legal process so that we could help these managers position for their 1, 2, and 5-year moves to stay viable.
Right. Well, to find out about the impact that this law is having, I visited a farm in Colchester, talked to a dairy farmer who's having to make tough decisions about the future of his business. If you drive Mallett's Bay Avenue from Winooski or Colchester, you've passed by the Robert and Norman Thibault farm. How long has your family been here?
The early 1900s. 1918, I think my grandfather started.
The Thibaults raised 200 cows on about 300 acres. They are one of 3 remaining dairy farms in Colchester. The majority of the farm's acreage is on river bottom land, so it's classified as a floodplain. Any nutrient runoff not absorbed by the land is apt to go right into the Winooski River or Lake Champlain. A couple of years ago, Thibault decided to make improvements to his barnyard and to change how he handles manure, milkhouse waste, and stormwater. He started working on a plan with NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Try to make something simple. We had Danny Pete from NRCS come over, and something small became a big project, an expensive project, and to make things cleaner and make it easier for us we went along with it, and I figured 200,000 around there, and it came 3 times that plus.
So what happened? Well, while Thibault was planning the upgrades to his farm, a new law went into effect in Vermont, the Required Agricultural Practices, or RAPs. This new law sets standards to manure application, restricts some farming in floodplain areas, and requires all farmers to have a comprehensive nutrient management plan. Before the law, Thibault could have tackled his project piecemeal over several years. But in order to be in compliance with RAPs, he's going to have to move up his timetable and finish his project within a year's time or face financial penalties.
What you see out here is going to change completely.
Yeah.
The gutter cleaner.
Tony Kitsos is a farm management educator with UVM Extension.
The cost of doing business has just gone up. If you don't have the infrastructure in place on your farm to farm the way the reps want you to farm, you've got to be able to make that investment. There are farms right now where we're having that difficult conversation that says if you don't have the money to put in your 10% share of the total cost of this project, you need to think about possibly exiting. That's a difficult conversation to have.
The price paid to farmers for their milk has been in decline for over a year and a half, so coming up with the money right now is a challenge. Add to that the changes Tebow has to make don't improve his farm's bottom line.
It doesn't add value to the farm.
It doesn't?
It doesn't add value, no. It's going to help better manage, make things a little bit easier, in the wintertime. Clean the barn, it's in the storage, you don't have to remove manure, less handling. I think it's time saving, I'm hoping.
But it doesn't improve the
value of the farm. No.
Tebow has decided to move ahead with this project. NRCS is going to help with the cost share, so Tebow's contribution will be 10% of $600,000. It's true that these improvements don't add value to his business, but they do improve the value of Vermont.
It's going to help, keep the manure out of the streams. Yes, helping the lake and clean up the water quality.
Today, you cannot afford not to do this.
UVM Extension has been working with farmers to improve their land management through practices like cover cropping and no-till planting. Kitsos and his colleagues held workshops earlier this year to help farmers navigate the law and to understand their rights.
There's not a farmer out there that I run across that does not want to do their job responsibly. Everyone does. My responsibility is to help farms who want that help to deal with the infrastructure side of things, the sort of the large cost manure handling projects. This one is going to cost upwards of $600,000 total now. Certainly money that a farmer doesn't have in a checkbook of this size to write that check. It's also a comprehensive look at where the alternative funding sources are going to come from the federal government and state government. There are some good programs out there. And combining all these resources, bringing it together and saying, here's the package, the financial package that we think can get this project going.
The Tebow family has been farming in Colchester for generations, and Norman Tebow expects that will continue. Did it ever cross your mind that this is just too much?
Yes and no. You've got time. I got plenty of life left, I hope. And like the older farmers, they either got bigger, got bull tanks, or got out. And that's where we are now. Move forward, improve, or get out. So farmers are in that situation now, I believe, is you got to change. And it's something that you have to adapt to and work with it. Every farmer is going to be different. It may work for me, it may not work for another farm. The soils I have, it works. And I'm making it work.
Next time you drive Mallett's Bay Avenue, look for the Tebow farm. It'll be there, right where it's always been. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the impact of new laws on farming practices in Vermont with UVM Extension business specialist Mark Cannella. Mark, in the story we mentioned the workshops that you've been having. Give us some more detail on the topics you covered.
Sure. A little over a year ago, we decided to specifically look at the legal implications to the environmental regulations and to provide legal education to Vermont's farmers. When we did those workshops, we really had 4 goals in mind. The first goal was to discuss the concept of resilience and to understand, as we heard in the piece, that farmers need to adapt. They need to make changes. And that means changes to the business. It does mean changes to the owners and also to the families. So we addressed that issue. We dug into the idea of what the RAPs were, what the required agricultural practices were specifically, so people understood the law. Then we veered away from agronomy and ditches and buffers, and we talked about what what the Vermont statutes say and what are the legal implications to compliance or penalties. Farmers are not aware of that information, and they were willing and interested to hear it. And then finally, we let farmers talk amongst themselves to voice their concerns and talk about how they might deal with these changes and how they might go about it.
Now, we've worked together for a little while. You are not a lawyer. So what did you do to provide legal advice for farmers?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and we certainly did not want to pretend we were either.
Right.
So we hired a skilled attorney in Vermont, someone who knew agricultural law in Vermont and also knew agricultural policy. We worked with that attorney to review the rulemaking process before the RAPs were finalized, so we could follow the process and encourage farmers to give their input. And then we also followed the line item details of the laws and more laws that relate to it so that we could convey that information in an easy way to farmers.
Was that important was that an eye-opening sort of thing for farmers to be like, oh, there's legalities here. This is a law. I got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think we all know what happens when someone's got a question about the law. Right. They have their brother or cousin down the road call the regulatory agency to ask if they're in compliance.
Right.
Farmers, obviously, when this happened, had some concerns and some caution about what they should or shouldn't talk to the Agency of Agriculture about, and we were able to be that third party, that we could be a conduit to the legal information and the education, and to have those conversations about what really was within the law and what was something that they really needed to dig into deeper for their specific situation.
In the video, Tony talked about having hard conversations with farmers about getting out of business. How do you approach this, extremely sensitive topic in those workshops?
Yeah, we have a lot of those discussions with our farms with water quality related issues and just agriculture at large. Our team views any decision being made as a success. We want farmers to own their decisions, hopefully to make information-based decisions. In this case, we know that there will be farms, and there are farms that are discussing possibly an exit from the dairy business. If that's an informed decision, we don't consider that a failure at all. We like to have people positioned to make the decision that works best for them. In some cases, it's making new investments. Other cases, it's changing practices, sometimes drastic changes. And in some cases, it might mean an exit from the dairy business. But there's a lot of work to be done there so that it can be done smartly and smoothly, and so that those resources can still have a life after, and whatever alternative practice might come next.
We talk a lot, when we talk about farms, we think about farms, but where they're actual businesses. And so, as we mentioned earlier in the program, you have to sit down and look at the very cold, hard numbers. So what you're saying about making a decision is about, look, if the numbers say this, that, getting out, exiting is maybe your best idea, that's okay as long as it's a decision and the farmer doesn't feel forced. That's what you were sort of saying, right?
Yeah, sure. We want them to make that decision, and we want them to be able to consider the short-term implications. We do cash flow budgeting, ask the farmer how can we get through the next 12 months, but we also fast forward to the next 5 and 10 years. We're talking a lot about farm transfers and transitions. There's a lot of new generation farmers that are coming into businesses that will own these new investments and own these new water quality practices and come in with this conservation mindset. And so we need to do some work to prepare them to carry on that business for the next 2 or 3 decades. There's a lot of conversations, and there's some good analysis that we can do in that process.
And speaking of those conversations, you said you let farmers talk amongst themselves. There's a certain aspect of your job that is counseling, not just financial counseling. You're not a lawyer, you're not a mental health counselor, but you're having these conversations with the whole family and not just the farmer, the people doing the work. Yeah,
we understand that we're in a privileged position to work with folks on business decisions. We see their books, we sit at their tables, we meet their family members. We do a lot of listening. At the end of the day, I think we all want robust agricultural businesses and a robust agricultural economy. We encourage farmers to make their own decisions, but we try to listen, add some analysis, help them sort through different pieces of information. In this case, navigate the different partners in conservation and regulations so that they can come to a good decision for their business and for their families. That's our hope when we work with farms.
And this is just as much finding out, those sources that are out there. For the TBOs, it was NRCS, that there's money out there to make changes if people need to make those changes.
Yeah, sure. There are different resources between NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. They also have robust grant programs supporting this work. And there's new grant programs coming on every day to help Vermont livestock farmers. So we help them understand those things and navigate those partnerships and now the legal implications if they go under contract on investments, so that they can have a plan.
Right. Mark, just about a minute left. Extension has its own resources. You have a blog. Tell us about where people can find out more information.
Sure. University of Vermont Extension, our agricultural business programs. We've got a website. You can find it through the Extension website. Through this legal program, we've put out a lot of resources on due process. We just put out a new fact sheet on payment limitations for federal grant programs, so farmers can understand the business side of how they could apply or access federal funds for those investments. And then we'll also encourage folks to look at the Agency of Agriculture, because this is a new law, it's a changing climate, and people will be watching for updates from the Agency of Ag.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for talking about this important subject. I'd like to thank everyone here at WCAX for also making this program possible. And as always, thank you for stopping by Across the Fence.